Over the past few years, we've tested a lot of laptops, tried models in all price categories and played with about all the technologies the big manufacturers offer. And with such a vast offering, I think it's not just us who have a hard time making the right choice. Looks like the manufacturers also have an increasingly hard time launching new generations. And that's probably why you're wondering, why the hell would I want to see another laptop? Isn't it the same as last year's, with just a few more things added here and there, like a newer CPU and a better GPU? Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, and I like to make a few things clear about the annual generations of laptops. For this, I chose a 2023 ROG Strix G16, which features the code series G614JW, whatever, too many letters and numbers in there. But what the serial number actually says is that we're dealing with a gaming model featuring a more than decent configuration with an Intel Core i9 13980HX CPU, 16GB of DDR5 RAM and a dedicated NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4060 laptop GPU. And you'll immediately get the point that this time around, the improvements from one generation to the next might be more than the usual boosts. To be honest, the 4060 part is quite interesting, and somehow calling this configuration decent doesn't actually do it much justice. Let me tell you why. In the case of this Strix G16, I will focus less on the basic things that may have been present in the last two generations and more on the features that matter. For example, the dope-ass CPU. The Intel Core i9 13980HX is a special beast, and even though I've tested it in the past, it never fails to amaze me, and it confirms once again that it's pretty much the best mobile processor on the market. It's also damn versatile, so with a total of 24 cores, 32 threads and a boost of 5.6 GHz, it will do a good job in gaming, as well as in tasks like video and photo editing, graphics, programming, etc. But since our laptop is still a gaming machine at its core, you can be sure that the performance will be good both in older games, known for devouring gigahertz, and also in new releases that know how to use multiple cores. Next in line, you have the GPU. The RTX 4060 doesn't come in desktop format yet, so for now I cannot compare it with its standalone sibling that's also coming soon. But in tests, it offered performance similar to RTX 3060 Ti, even to the RTX 3070, in the desktop versions, of course. It scored around 11k points in TimeSpy. Those 16 gigs of RAM are not the most ideal amount, although there are plenty of people who can do well with that. As for the others, you can always fill in the second RAM slot, right? Not really. Because in this configuration, Asus went for packing two memory modules into the laptop, basically taking up both slots. Yeah, it's cool that it's dual channel and it helps a bit with the overall system performance. But the bigger problem shows up when you look at the memory configuration. Two 8GB chunks at 4800 megatransfers per second. That's the poorest DDR5 memory to be found, and at such high-end specs, I think we might have done well with a single 16GB module and the option to upgrade to 32GB without buying a separate kit. But maybe it's better that way, and at some point you can get a less trashy pair. At least the storage is solid, with 1TB on a PCI Express 4.0 SSD. But here, compared to the ROG Strix Car series that have very fast Samsung SSDs, we got a 1TB Micron 2400. Not great, not terrible, with reading speeds of around 4000 megabytes per second, compared to Samsung's and other models 7000 or so. But I suppose most people won't mind any of that stuff, as long as the laptop runs smoothly. And in this regard, I have no complaints. And if you're wondering what's different from last year's generation, apart from the GPU and CPU mentioned earlier, perhaps the most important change is in the cooling section. With such strong hardware, power consumption has obviously increased. In this case, we have a 65-watt TDP CPU and a GPU that also draws up to 140 watts. So about 200-something watts in a laptop as thick as a finger. Time to meet ROG Intelligent Cooling, a system the manufacturer dubs an engineering marvel. Ouch. And how does this pompous marketing phrase translate into English? I mean, it has even more heat pipes, even more fans, and of course some liquid metal thermal paste. But the big trick is that in fact the cooling of the Strix G16 is not just the cooler and its components, but the whole chassis has a hand in it, and not just for the looks and protection. The cover on the bottom of the laptop is punched out to allow the 3 fans to always draw in fresh air. And yes, I said 3 fans. One for the CPU, another for the GPU, and the third for moral support, I guess. Initially, I thought it was for the chipset or something, but according to the description on the ROG website, the extra fan also helps drop the temperature of the GPU. And for venting the hot air produced by the components, we also have a full-width radiator set right at the edge of the chassis for increased efficiency. And of course, let's not forget the thermal paste, which comes like gravy on a steak. In the case of processors, any configuration comes with Thermal Grizzly Conductor Not Extreme pre-applied. But the situation is different with the graphics chip. For configurations with anything other than RTX 4080, since the Strix G series does not offer an RTX 4090 version, the standard paste is used. And the cooling performance of this laptop is visibly boosted. The processor eventually reaches 90 degrees and goes into throttle, but that's normal. In the meantime, it also reaches 5.6 GHz easily for longer periods of time, which vary depending on the room temperature, the surface you're holding the laptop on, etc. But its behavior is normal. Even on desktops we run into such throttling issues, so we shouldn't be surprised. Instead, I was deeply impressed by the cooling of the GPU. In the test sessions, we didn't jump above 72 degrees Celsius at 100% load. This means that in older games, or in games that don't stress the components as much, you can record significantly lower temperatures. And now let's move on to the screen and see how things look, literally. I'll say it now to rest my case. I don't like laptop displays for a couple of big fat reasons. Firstly, the diagonal, which is often too small for my preferences, and secondly, the display's performance. Traditionally, laptops come with somewhat dimmer screens because of the form factor, except that in recent years we've seen some serious advances in this segment. For example, this screen right here, ROG Nebula display, is supposedly IPS grade, so it's not IPS. But it looks good, and what I want to highlight is the balance. It has vivid and detailed colors, 100% DCI-P3 color spectrum coverage, a 16:10 ratio that gives you more workspace, and 2560 by 1600 resolution. And the gaming features of this panel sound something like this: 240 Hz refresh rate, a response time of only 3 milliseconds, and NVIDIA G-Sync support. So you get the right display when it comes to image quality and speed. For competitive gaming, 240 Hz will surely be felt, and if you're the type who prefers AAA games, titles like Resident Evil 4 or Hogwarts Legacy will run very smoothly with G-Sync. And that seems like a big deal to me, especially when the setup might stutter once you turn up the details to Ultra and native screen resolution. So much for the screen, so enough fluff. Let's see what performance the new Strix G16 offers. We already know that the Intel Core i9-13980HX is an exceptional processor, and I really mean it. Last time I got to test it, it was on par with powerful desktop processors like the 12900K and 7900X from AMD, so it's not going to bottleneck any existing laptop graphics chip, and I don't think there's any game that's gonna be a problem. But for consistency, here are the results. The last time I got my hands on a laptop with 13980HX, it happened to be the very Strix Scar with RTX 4090. So today we see this CPU working next to a video card that one can more or less buy from a salary, not a kidney or two. And at least in benchmarks, the RTX 4060 laptop does well. It offers similar performance to the desktop RTX 3060 Ti, and for the resolution and refresh rate of the G16's display, it's a perfect match. I'll give you some numbers to get a better idea. And since we've received the update to the newest 3D Mark version, I'll also make a small announcement. Starting with this review, I'll be removing Firestrike from our usual tests as it's outdated. That's because DirectX 11 is no longer relevant to 2023's hardware standards. Instead, I've added Speedway, the new test in DirectX 12 Ultimate, which puts the hardware to work in a big way. And to make it fun and move into the ray tracing era properly, we've decided to make Port Royal a regular appearance in our tests. And we have something like this: 2500 points in Speedway, 5800 in Port Royal, and 10,900 in Time Spy. Not bad at all, and in superposition at the 4K optimized preset, we got a result of 7300 points. Predictably, performance in games isn't bad either. I only tested a native display resolution, meaning high, and the results look good for the RTX 4060 in question. But we also have to take into account that we're talking about a 140 watts GPU that outperforms the options offered by other laptops, so a good advantage for the Strix G16 here. I didn't run through a lot of games because I was more interested in how the laptop performs, not results that may be irrelevant to some of you. So I installed CSGO, Dirt 5 and Returnal. The games ran at native resolution 2560 by 1600 with detail levels cranked to the maximum. In Counter-Strike we got 267 FPS, a result some might find poor, but bear in mind that most will turn the graphics to low anyway for an FPS boost, in which case it jumps to 500. We got a little muddy in Dirt 5, so we averaged 64 FPS. That's of course with ultra high settings and ray tracing enabled. And for performance at QHD resolution, with the most demanding settings and the RTX on top of that, I'd say that's a more than respectable result. The last game was Returnal, a new favorite for my testing sessions. The game is very well ported and very well optimized for PC, so I got an average of 100 FPS at 1440p resolution this time, with the Epic preset. Here I also want to come up with an addition. Native screen resolution is a problem for many games which simply do not support it by default. This leads to some incompatibilities, and games like Apex Legends won't start unless you choose a 16:9 aspect ratio. Not ROG's fault here, but some more research on this side would have saved potential buyers some headaches. But all for the best, it works to either force a 16:9 resolution or change the scaling method in the NVIDIA control panel. So I guess everything I've told you so far makes the new ROG Strix G16 2023 a tempting offer for someone looking for a gaming laptop. But be careful, because this is strictly a gaming laptop. If you want a premium metal build or a more discreet design or a good webcam, you do wise to look at other, more office designer options. The chassis has remained pretty much the same from years past, with decent construction and a, well, gaming design. Personally, I like it, but some might not like this look. It's not going to dent or bend when you press it, and I didn't notice any shortcomings on the build quality side, so it should be pretty durable over time. What the Strix G16 gives you instead, and you don't get much from other manufacturers, is a very good gaming experience. And with a price tag of up to $2,000 for the configuration we tested, I say it's a good choice. The display is powerful, the hardware configuration handles the latest games without a hitch, and with the RTX 4060 you have access to all the software goodies from NVIDIA. Ray tracing, DLSS 3 with frame generation and reflex. With this launch, Republic of Gamers ticks off yet another sleek laptop in a popular series, and I'm sure the G16 and its variants will be a hit on the market. And now tell me in the comments section, how do you like the new G16 2023? Is it different enough from the previous one? How do you find the price in relation to what it offers? I know 2 grand is a lot, but I think it's not too much for the most powerful mobile CPU at the moment, and for a new gen GPU that comes with a lot of new technologies and features. But that's just my opinion, and I'm more interested to know yours. If you believed we saved you a kidney or two, why not repay us with a little subscribe to our channel? Much appreciated.